Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll get started. Our first talk today is entitled An Improved Augmented Reality Method of Inserting Virtual Objects into the Scene with Transparent Objects. The paper is going to be presented by Aijia Zhang. And Aijia, you can share your slides now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Aijia Zhang. I'm from Jing University, and here is our presentation on our work. I improved the augmented reality method of inserting virtual objects into the scene with transparent objects. Here is the first part, problem introduction. Inserting virtual objects into a real scene with transparent objects requires the estimation of illumination, the material of opaque and transparent objects. As shown in the left figure, transparent tuples with different parameters will influence the effect of inserted virtual leaves. Our goal in this paper is to obtain plausible results when virtual objects are inserted around the transparent objects. As for previous work, the first figure is from CVPR conference. This work only considers opaque objects in real scenes. The second figure is from TVCG. This method has been proposed to only estimate the refractive index of transparent objects. Our method estimates both the refractive index and the roughness parameters of the transparent object. Here's the second part. I will talk about algorithm details. Here is an overview of our algorithm. First, the input to the method is multiple video images. The geometric model is reconstructed by the existing method. We design a two-step optimization method. In the first step, the inverse path tracing is used to jointly optimize the illumination and the material of opaque objects in the scene. In the second step, after adding transparent objects to the scene, all materials and the illumination are optimized together. In the output stage, the virtual object is inserted into the original scene by using the estimated illumination and the material to render the scene to obtain the final result. Inverse rendering is the basis of our approach. Inverse path tracing is the process of optimizing the parameters by combining the light transport equation with the gradient descent algorithm. The rendered intensity value calculated by light transport equation is shown below. The key to the inverse path tracing is to construct the objective function. The objective function is composed of input image pixel xg and the rendered intensity value ig. R and M are the illumination and the material to be estimated. In order to minimize the objective function, we need to calculate the partial derivatives of ELM with respect to illumination and the material. Next, we will introduce the derivative of rendered image with respect to illumination and the material of opaque objects. The unknown parameters of the light source that affects the rendered image is the intensity value of each area light source. The derivative of the rendered image with respect to illumination is shown in this equation. The FR equation expresses the material of an opaque object represented by the BRDF model based on macrofacet. We can obtain this equation that represents derivative of the rendered image with respect to KD, KS, and sigma. The BTDF model based on macrofacet and the Snell law is shown in this equation. To solve the derivative of the parameters of the BTDF model, we can obtain this equation. We can obtain the correct results until the objective function converges. The virtual model can be inserted anywhere around the transparent object, and the augmented reality system can generate realistic fusion effects. Here is the third part. I will show experimental results. The proposed method is first verified on virtual disk size. The first two columns are the input image and the image recovered using estimated parameters in our method. The last three columns are fusion images with inserted objects generating by real parameters. Parameters obtained from our method and the compared method. Fusion results of our method are almost visually indistinguishable from the fusion results generated by real parameters. Real scenes are captured by an RGBD camera. Figures are comparison of fusion results with transparent object for real scenes. A smooth transparent object is placed in scene 1. Our fusion results, figure C, is closer to the ground truth, figure B, which shows that the refractive index estimated by our method is more accurate. The transparent object in scene 2 is a cuboid with large roughness. By comparing all the output results, figure H obtained by our method is closest to the real effect. So here is the last part, conclusion and future work. In this part, in this paper, we solved the problem of inserting virtual objects around various transparent objects for augmented reality. As for future work, we consider applying this method to augmented reality systems. Therefore, reducing algorithm computing time as much as possible is a future research topic. That's all about my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia. We're going to hold our questions until the end, or you can put the questions if you want into the Discord now, and we'll answer the questions at the end of the session. So our second talk is entitled Using Speech to Visualize Shared Gaze Cues in Mixed Reality Remote Collaboration, and that talk is going to be presented by Allison Jing. Allison, you can share your screen now.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Jing from the Empathic Computing Lab of the University of South Australia. I'll be presenting our work titled Using Speech to Visualize Shared Gaze Cues in Mixed Reality Remote Collaboration. So in this paper, we present a 360 panoramic mixed reality system that visualizes shared gaze cues using contextual speech input to improve remote task coordination. We conducted 2 user studies to evaluate the design of MR gaze speech interfaces and to explore the combination of visual styles and context control levels. So in face-to-face task-based, conversing collaborators can easily combine nonverbal cues such as gaze, hand pointing, and speech to indicate an area of interest to refer to the target objects. For example, speakers can judge whether listeners direct their attention towards this reference and if more information is needed for joint attention through gaze alignment in situated dialogue. However, this natural gaze speech interaction is disconnected physically in remote collaboration. Mixed reality technology can be used to overcome these limitations. A live 360 panoramic MR system can enable remote pairs to be immersed in the same task space and share virtual cues with additional spatial elements incorporated. This type of system allows users to perform physical tasks in an omnidirectional independent view with access to varied virtual modalities to support or compensate for one another. In this study, we'll further explore the use of shared gaze behaviors combined with contextual verbal information to restore this connection in MR remote collaboration. Enabling interaction via live 360 panoramic video-based MR system. Our system uses multi-model input methods to visualize and exchange shared gaze cues between a local augmented reality user and a remote virtual reality collaborator. It uses eye tracker combined with speech input to capture and share bidirectional real-time gaze speech interaction. There are 3 shared gaze behaviors, including browsing state to indicate active eye movements, focus state to show eye dwell, and joint state to indicate mutual attention. 3 MR interfaces are designed to show joint gaze indicator, visualized through a virtual connection between collaborators' current gaze points in arrow pointer, screen edge pointer, and ray pointer, depending on the visibility level. The indicator will be triggered when in situ keywords are spoken by either collaborator detected by window speech recognition API to lead to collaborators quickly achieve mutual attention in context. The goal of the first study was to evaluate the design of the MR interfaces to understand how the level of visual obtrusiveness would affect the representation of contextual speech input. 12 participants aged between 22 to 33 were recruited. 85% identified themselves as frequent AR/VR users. A within subject design was employed. In each condition, a pair was expected to collaboratively find duplicated symbols in both local and remote rows. Both qualitative and quantitative measures were used. I'll play a small demo clip to showcase the conditions briefly. So basically, this guy just said, can you look over here in context? And the array will pop up. And this is the first interface, arrow pointer. The next one is screen edge pointer. The last one is ray pointer. So findings from the first study suggested that an explicit visual form directly connect the collaborators' shared gaze to contextual conversations preferred. However, having an explicit joint gaze indicator available all the time may add extra cognitive load during task collaboration. Therefore, the display style and modality of the context control may need further investigation. This led to the second study. A second study was conducted to understand how to combine a joint gaze indicator display styles with the different levels of context control to positively affect task coordination. 24 participants in 12 pairs with age ranging from 19 to 42 were recruited. 4 conditions were designed using different combinations of attributes in context display and control modality. They are joint gaze indicator always on, indicator disabled, indicator controlled by contextual speech, and controlled by idle. A puzzle-solving task that requires symmetric collaboration was used. We created a gaze behavior metrics as objective measures and post-condition, post-study surveys as subjective measures. To conclude, a system usability scale and a post-study preference ranking and open questionnaires were also included. I'll show a brief demo of the study as well. So this is a gaze indicator always on, and this is no indicator. And this one is idle controlled, and we already seen the speech control one. So the second study indicates the gaze speech modality shortens the coordination time to attend to the shared interest, making the communication more natural and the collaboration more effective. Quantitative feedback also suggests that having a constant joint gaze indicator provides a consistent bidirectional view while establishing a sense of co-presence during task collaboration. So there are limitations to our study nonetheless. The Vifora marker used to align AR/VR coordinate system had limited tracking accuracy. The window speech recognition is cloud-based and has delayed depending on the network speed and accent recognition issue. Lastly, the study was conducted in a lab control environment lacking real-world practices, and the performance can be affected by individuals' communication problem-solving abilities. To conclude, in this work, we presented a live 360 panoramic video-based mixed reality system that uses contextual speech input to visualize shared gaze cues between remote collaborators. Using this system, we conducted 2 studies to evaluate the design of a gaze speech interface and how different modalities should be combined with conversing context during task coordination. The result demonstrated that explicit visual design provides a direct connection between context and shared gaze cues. The gaze speech modality has made communication more natural since the key phrases are embedded in the conversation when gazing at an in-situ target, and they only appear when the need for joint attention signals through speech. Meanwhile, constant joint gaze indicator provides a bidirectional view where users can subtly attend to each other's current focus without using additional input modalities, which establish a consistent sense of co-presence. When designing gaze UI, symmetrical visual feedback should be considered to ensure remote collaborators acknowledge a message being successfully delivered both ways. In the future, we plan to explore other modalities such as gesture, physiological cues to support empathic collaboration experience. Doing so will help us further understand how shared gaze cues support or compensate for other communication methods in a variety of task contexts. Thank you so much for your time, and you can reach me at my email portfolio as shown above should you be interested in collaborating with me and my lab. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So our next talk is entitled a comparison of spatial augmented reality predictive cues and their effects on sleep-deprived users. And the talk is going to be presented by Ben Volmer. So Ben, you can take the screen now.
Yep, that look good to you? Thank you, Victoria. As I said, as Victoria introduced me, my name is Ben Volmer. I'm from the University of South Australia, and I'll be presenting our work on comparison of spatial augmented reality cues and their effects on sleep-deprived users. So first, I would like to highlight some information regarding sleep deprivation. So sleep deprivation has a negative impact on our cognitive performance and memory. And this decline in performance can be noticed with as little as 16 hours of being awake. So sleep deprivation is important to consider as it can affect people in many industries. Another factor to consider alongside sleep deprivation is the circadian rhythm. This rhythm is our internal body clock that repeats roughly every 24 hours. During the time that we would normally be asleep, performance is known to decline heavily. Looking at some related work in the field, one existing study was conducted by Baumeister in which a SAR procedural task was observed over a 12-hour sleep deprivation study. However, it did not use predictive cues and the sleep deprivation duration was short. Another related study was run by myself, in which SAR predictive cues were designed. However, these experiments were conducted under ordinary circumstances, so the users were not sleep fatigued. So the main motivations. So there are two primary motivations for our work. The first was to investigate a SAR procedural task over a longer period of sleep deprivation in prior studies. And in this case, we did a 62-hour sleep deprivation study. This also allowed us to examine multiple cycles of the circadian rhythm. And the second motivation was to investigate how users perform with SAR predictive cues throughout sleep deprivation. Specifically, we want to investigate if they would retain superior performance, like in prior studies, and if they could be used as a possible countermeasure to the negative effects of sleep deprivation. The main contribution of our paper is the 62-hour sleep deprivation experiment, in which we examined a SAR procedural task with predictive cues. This allows for greater insight into how sleep deprivation and the circadian rhythm can impact SAR visual instructions. We also provide evidence and recommendations for which SAR predictive cues are best for sleep-deprived users. The task we selected was a SAR procedural button pressing task, as it has been proven to be useful in prior studies. Participants were required to press the buttons on a dome-shaped device in a numbered order from 1 to 16. Once all 16 buttons were pressed correctly, they would randomly swap position to be pressed again. This repeated 12 times per condition. For the task, participants were instructed to use the index finger of their dominant hand, and between conditions, participants had a 1-minute break, and during this 1-minute break, participants answered a mental efforts scale for the condition they just performed. The task itself was conducted 8 times throughout the entire study, each lasting roughly 30 minutes. We tested 6 different conditions, which were designed from a previous experiment. The baseline condition shown here, referred to as none, as it did not have a predictive cue. All remaining conditions had some provide additional assistance to guide the user to the upcoming task. Some modify the upcoming task location, while others provide additional annotations around the active task. In these images, 1 represents the current task and 2 represents the upcoming task. I will now summarize the predictive cue conditions. So one of them was blink, which had the upcoming task flash on and off. In this case, it's in the off state. Color, which modified the upcoming task to be a different color, being orange. Arc, which provided an additional annotation around the active task in one of 8 different compass directions towards the next task. Arrow, which provided an additional annotation in the form of an arrow from the active task pointing directly to the upcoming task. And finally, line, which linked the line between the current and upcoming task. Before each procedural task began, participants performed a quick 3-minute psychomotor vigilance task. This was to showcase participants' performance fatigue by an existing measure. The PVT itself is a simple reaction time test where the user must press a button when prompted to by a screen. For this experiment, participants attended a special purpose sleep facility, slept on location. A maximum of 4 participants were recruited at once, 2 dome setups were used, so when two participants completed the task, the next 2 would begin. As previously mentioned, each participant performed the button pressing task at 8 different times. 1 was conducted during a training day, and 6 were conducted throughout the 62-hour sleep deprivation, and 1 final session after they had slept again at the lab to see how they recovered. 23 total participants were recruited, with 21 managing to complete full 62 hours of deprivation. The results collected consisted of button press response times, errors, and self-assessed mental effort. Regarding response times, we can see that performance decay as state deprivation increased for all conditions. Noticeable sharp declines in performance can be seen during S3 and S5, which were both conducted at 5 AM. Performance recovers after these sessions, and this showcases possible effects of the circadian rhythm. Performance also has a significant recovery after sleeping in all conditions. Comparing the predictive cues themselves, we note that all cues retain faster response time than having a predictive cue, and line also has significantly faster response times than all predictive cues throughout the entire experiment duration. Compared to the PBT results, we can again see the impacts of the early morning sessions, and these results also show when the participants were most fatigued. Regarding errors, we can examine a slow increase in errors over time, with a large amount of errors occurring for a majority of conditions during the early morning sessions. The significant increase in errors as sleep deprivation continued was noticed at some stage throughout the study by all conditions with the exception of line, indicating that line provided a consistent accuracy for sleep deprived users throughout the sleep deprivation period. Another observation is that color and none saw their first significant increase in errors from going from S2 to S3. Now, this means that other conditions' accuracy may decay at later stages of sleep deprivation. Finally, the self-assessed mental effort results saw little fluctuation between experiment times. Throughout the entire experiment, none remained the most difficult to understand, while line remained the simplest to understand. In conclusion, from this 62-hour sleep deprivation study, we were able to examine the impact of long periods of sleep deprivation and the circadian rhythm and what it can have on SAR visual instructions. We also were able to validate that SAR predictive cues remain superior despite presenting more information to the user, and that some cues were even noticed to decay at a slower pace than others. Most notably, line was least impacted by the negative effects of sleep deprivation and the circadian rhythm. The authors would like to thank those listed here, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Okay, so our next talk is entitled Distortion-free mid-air image inside refractive surface and on reflective surface. And the presenter is Shunji.
Yes, but I cannot start PPT. Okay, please wait. Oh my God. Sorry, my PPT is not responded. So. Okay. Okay. Could you see that?
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's start my presentation. My name is Shunji Kiuchi from the University of Electrocommunications, Japan. I'd like to talk about distortion-free mid-image inside a refractive surface and on reflective surface. At the beginning, I'll introduce our system easily. Our method displays a distortion-free digital image inside a refractive and on reflective surfaces. Dynamic full-color image can be superimposed on physical objects, and it has the potential for a new form of display. Mid-image is a CG image that is displayed in 3D space as a real image, so there is no need for user to wear any device. Recently, this technique is gathering attention for non-contact interface. Mid-image is displayed by special optical elements, and we use the MMAP, stand for micromirror array plate. MMAP forms a mid-image to a plane symmetrical position by reflecting incident light twice at the mirror array. However, MMAP has a limitation that it can be observed beyond the mid-image. But we want to show only the mid-image, not the system. A possible solution to this problem is to insert a reflective or transparent object to avoid to see the optical system directly. Several optical systems employing reflective surfaces have been proposed. Yamato et al. Proposed the Enchant table, that display the CG character as a mid image on clear-coated table. Matsura et al. Proposed a scooplet that replaced water as a reflective surface and enabled the user to scoop the water and the CG image simultaneously. However, some challenges still remain with the method of inserting reflective and refractive surfaces. First, a lot of works with reflective surface are limited in flat surface, and no method for distortion compensation have been proposed in mid-image context. Furthermore, to the best of our knowledge, no study has employed refractive surface. In this study, we propose a compensation method of the mid-image distortion with refractive and reflective surfaces. The optical system is composed of light source, MMAP, and refractive or reflective surfaces. Here, I introduce the compensation method of mid-image by utilizing ray tracing-based simulation. The procedure to display a distortion-free mid-image is divided into 4 steps. First, optical system design. Second, rendering of desired view image. Third, generation of light source image that cancel out the distortion. Finally, display the mid-image using generated light source image. Here, we implemented first to third step on ray tracing-based simulation. At the first step, we determine the configuration of optical system, such as position of mid-image, geometry of refractive or reflective surface, and distance from mid-image to MMAP. At the second step, we render the desired view image when undistorted mid-image is observed from a fixed viewpoint. In practical implementation, the light source is directly placed at the mid-image position, and view image is rendered. At the third step, we reproduce the optical system in CG space. After that, ray tracing is performed on the optical system. At this point, the pixel values of desired view image are assigned to the ray. This enables us to inversely trace the light path that delivers the desired view image to the view. And the pixel values propagated by the ray are received at the light source position and exported as an image. Finally, we can obtain the light source image that cancel out the distortion. This is the results. Narrowing distortion in refractive surface and stretched distortion in reflective surface are compensated with our method. Next, I'll talk about the evaluation. To verify the effect of our method, we evaluated the mid-image from 2 perspectives, image geometry and quality. In the geometry experiment, we measured the mid-image shape inside acrylic cube, which is rotated 15.8 degrees to induce a distortion. We measured displacement of intersection points in grid image from the reference condition that the mid-image was simply displayed. Looking at the images, the image is shifted to the right without compensation. However, with our method, mid-image is displayed at the approximately same horizontal position as the reference. This is the measurement results. We confirmed that the displacement with our method was smaller than without compensation. Next, we conducted the same experiment on the reflective surface. This is set up. The mid-image is displayed on the top of the mirror. Here is the mid-images and measurement results. Looking at the images, our method maintained the mid-image as a square. However, image without compensation was widely warped to the left and right. And the displacement with our method was smaller than without compensation. Next, the experiment on image quality. We measured the similarity between reference condition and 2 comparison conditions. We used the cylinder for refractive surface and the same mirror as used in geometry experiment for reflective surface. 2 image quality metrics, SSIM and LPAPS, were used to calculate the similarity. We captured and rendered images with actual camera and simulation. Here is displayed images with each condition. First, we show the results of SSIM. The value of SSIM ranges from 0 to 1, with higher values indicating a higher image quality. As a result, our method brought a better quality in all conditions. Next is the results of LPIPS. The value of LPIPS indicates a perceptual loss of a displayed image from the reference, and the lower values are better results. These results also show also show that our method brought a better quality in all conditions. And finally, we show the application of our method. Our method can be extended to dynamic image by using generated light source image as a UV map to deform the input image. This is conclusion. This is all for my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much. We have two more talks. The next talk in this session is entitled HaptoMapping, Visuo-Haptic Augmented Reality by Embedding User-Imperceptible Tactile Display Control Signals in a Projected Image. And this talk will be presented by Yamato Miyatake.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Yamato Miyatake from Osaka University. In this presentation, I introduce HaptoMapping, Visuo-Haptic Augmented Reality by embedding user-imperceptible tactile display control signals in a projected image. This work is done with my supervisors, Takefumi Hiraki, Daisuke Iwai, and Kosuke Sato. So our research motivation is building a Visuo-Haptic augmented reality system can independently render a visual and haptic content while keeping spatial and temporal consistency. The essential technology of our study is to use pixel-level visible light communication, PVLC, to control haptic devices. It enables us to control haptic devices at a pixel level. Also, it reduces the latency to present vibrations by the fastest transmission, and enables us to render visual and haptic information independently. Visuo-Haptic displays can present visual and haptic information by maintaining temporal and spatial consistency. Binary approach is to use an optical combiner as a visual display and grounding haptic device. It can present haptic information on virtual 3D objects, but requires enclosing the user's view by the optical combiner. Another way is to embed a haptic display into a visual display. Users can interact with the screen without covering the user's field of view, but workspace is limited to 2D surfaces. Also, using projection and the light control haptic device is an effective way to maintain those consistencies. They projected time-modulated light using a DLP projector. Haptic devices present vibrations by receiving the projection light and simply amplifying it as vibration signals. We can present haptic information corresponding to the received position, but it cannot independently render visual and haptic content due to the direct conversion. This shows a summary of the related work. Projection and light control haptic display has several advantages, but rendering of visual and haptic content is limited due to its controlling process. We aim to overcome the limitation using PVLC. PVLC is one of the communication technologies that can embed binary data into each pixel of projected images using fast flashing of binary images. In PVLC, a high-speed DLP projector modulates the luminance of each pixel by displaying a sequence of binary images. We can extract binary data by observing the temporal luminance changes in each pixel. On the other hand, people cannot notice the fast flashings due to the temporal resolution of human eyes. All binary images in a frame are projected within 20 milliseconds and repeatedly projected. The bottom right shows the projection result. We notice the embedded data in the slow projection, but it becomes imperceptible in the PVLC's high-speed projection. This shows the configuration of the HaptoMapping system. When a user touches the projected surface, a photodiode receives the pixel's luminance and sends it to the microcontroller. Then we get the embedded control signal by decoding received light signals. The microcontroller sends vibration pattern through the vibration storage or directly from the microcontroller. Finally, the device presents vibration pattern to the user's finger corresponding to the user's touching position. And this shows the developed haptic devices. We first developed finger-on and stylus devices. These haptic devices are designed for presenting realistic textures on illuminated 3D models. They have a single photodiode to get PVLC embedded control signals and a single actuator to present haptic sensation to users' fingertips. And we also developed an arm-mounted device. It is designed to create stroking sensations for online social touch situations. It has multiple modules comprising a photodiode and actuator. The modules are arrayed on the user's forearm, and it creates apparent tactile motion illusion. It also has a screen to project images on the device. This is the demonstration to show the, next slide. This shows developed applications. We first designed the texture design support system can present various textures, both visually and haptically. So preparing real textures burdens users, and it is not easy to test texture samples on 3D surfaces. And this system helps users test various textures on 3D surfaces easily. We also developed an online touch system. In this system, a local user can feel the remote user's touch using the hand projection and our stroking creation device. The device comprises multiple modules. And each module creates vibration corresponding to the projected hand. So this system allows users to touch again indirectly who have been unable to meet each other due to external effects such as health quarantine. This is a summary of my presentation. We aim to build a VHR system can independently render visual and haptic contents by keeping spatial and temporal consistencies. And we control wearable haptic displays using the pixel-level visible light communication technique to achieve this. As a prototype system, we have developed a PVLC projection system and 3 haptic devices, finger-on, stylus, and arm-mounted devices. Then we introduced a design support system and online touch system as applications. For more details of this research, please visit our paper. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really cool work. So the last talk in our session is entitled Scaling Experiences in Multi-User Augmented Reality, and it's going to be presented by Wenxiao Zhang.
Hello guys, can you hear me? You can hear, right?
Yes, we can.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Today I'm going to introduce our work, Scaling Experiences in Multi-User Augmented Reality. I'm Wenxiao Zhang from Huawei, but most of the work was done during my PhD HQST. Yeah, this paper is talking about offloading in mobile AR. We all know that augmented reality works by overlays virtual contents on physical objects, with knowing object first, tracks it from frame to frame, and then render some text 3D objects and animations, so on. But mobile AR encounters challenges because it leverages heavy computer vision algorithms, and for mobile devices, it provides only limited experience due to the local computation and storage. And cloud-based mobile AR bridges the gap, which it offloads heavy recognition tasks to servers, and large scales of recognition and annotations are enabled since of the computation and storage performed on a server. And at the same time, AR is latency sensitive, so we prefer to have an edge cloud. Okay, let's first have the talk about the idle case. Now Alice and Bob are visiting a museum with a mobile AR application, and now Alice wants to recognize the picture, so it sends a request to the edge server, and the edge server will send the result back, and Alice is able to recognize the poster. And also, Bob can also get quite good service. When the server gets busy, Alice and Bob exchanges their position, and they want to recognize new paintings. But remember that there are also lots of other people in the museum. So when they try to send the request to edge servers, there can be lots of other concurrent requests as well. So this time edge server gets busy and they cannot get the result back in time, and they get poor service. So what if P2P sharing is involved? When Alice and Bob encounter each other, they can share the already recognized results through P2P sharing and put it in the local cache. So next time when Bob wants to recognize the painting, instead of sending requests to the edge server, it can do the local search since it already has the result in its local cache, it still gets served. And it's also the same case for Alice. So our goal is to share experience in multi-user AR. And we found that there are opportunities for collaboration since AR ties tightly with the real world. Users viewing overlap scenes can share some common interests locally. And also at the same time, we can also reuse cloud edge computing resources and supporting large group of devices. Our challenges are first building a lightweight but accurate object recognition pipeline on mobile devices. And then we need to establish a common coordinate system among users to utilize the shared AR. Our contributions include investigating the scalability issue of edge-assisted AR, a collaborative caching mechanism, and an efficient solution for result review and extensive evaluations using experiments and trace-driven simulations. Okay, let's take a look at our client architecture. We divide the whole application into two layers. The application layer, which is written by the application developer, which contains the motion detector, the recognition proxy, which not actually does the recognition, and the visual tracker. And the base layer is a middleware provided by us, which contains annotation render, the same matter, which actually does the recognition through local search or by offloading, and also the annotation synchronizer, which synchronizes the annotation status between the peers. And also we have the peer manager and offloading manager, which communicates with peers and the edge server. So recognition is our most important design. Latency is lower and send the request only if the estimated edge latency is lower. Otherwise, it would do local recognition. And step 3, when the local cache misses, with the edge, the client would offload with a higher priority. So there's less queuing on the edge. Annotation synchronizer also enables instantaneous interaction for collaborative users, which has 3 steps. The peer manager first checks if they are looking at the same object, and then the peer manager will share the description and annotation to initialize the synchronization. And afterwards, upon users touch inputs, the seer would send them to the peers and show by the annotation render. Our test bed evaluation shows some accuracy results, which consists of several mobile clients and an edge server. And the recognition accuracy is the most important crucial part, and we found that surf is the best choice for mobile caching in terms of accuracy and latency, which we can achieve around 97% accuracy with around 100 local cache in the mobile device. By the way, it's around 100% with 1,000 cache items in the edge. Also, the latency, we achieve quite good latency results. The end-to-end latency for edge recognition is around 35 milliseconds, and for mobile cache is around 96 milliseconds. We also enable annotation synchronization with Wi-Fi direct of around 8 millisecond latency between two users, and we can interact fluently at 60 FPS. We build a trace-driven simulation that utilizes the student contact pattern of the National University of Singapore. We generate a mobility trace to simulate more than 400 people visiting an art museum with 1,000 paintings, and which is served with one edge server. From the results, we can see that SHARE can effectively address the scalability issue when serving more than 400 users simultaneously, which reduces the end-to-end latency by up to 130 times. And we also reduces the uploaded data by 33%. And we also achieve a cache hit ratio more than 98%, thanks to the sharing opportunities offered by hundreds of concurrent users. Here is a discussion future work. Instead of classification, SHARE focuses on image retrieval for object recognition, which offers more contextual information. And SHARE does not require localization and is not limited to indoor environments, and is also helpful for outdoor scenarios. About the sharing policy, SHARE can optimize the sharing policy by preference-aware schemes, which reduces the chance of exchanging objects that other users may not be curious about. And last is security and privacy. We argue that privacy issue may not exist for classroom education and most enterprise use cases, and all use cases can benefit from SHARE. We plan to address the issue in the future. That's all for my talk. Thanks.
Thank you. We have time now for questions, probably about 2 minutes per speaker. So we're going to have to go pretty quickly through them. So I'm seeing on the document that we have number of questions for Aijia. Let's see, I'll just grab one of them at random. Bruce Thomas asks, what was the frame rate that you could obtain from your system?
Our method can apply to the 3D display in the future.
Sorry, so he was asking about the frame rate.
Frame rate.
The frame rate. I don't know.
Sorry.
How quickly the images could be presented one after the other.
Sorry, I'm not very understand the meaning.
It means how fast can you process one frame?
This method can generate an image just.
Okay.
The system output an image. 就是yeah, one image. Not real time.
Okay, thank you.
It's static image, not video.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then let's see. I've got more questions, but I'll circle around. So for Allison, we have a question from Mark Billinghurst is asking, what are the next steps and future directions for this research?
Yep, so we're looking into multimodal interactions supported by shared gaze communication. So basically, there are a lot of things we can look into, including speech, which is what we're doing right now, and gestures, hand pointing, and physiological cues in the future. So a lot of things that we can try to investigate in the future.
Thank you. And then for Ben, for a question from Steve Feiner, have you considered how your results could apply to users who weren't actually sleep deprived, but just having trouble concentrating? For example, by adapting the cue style based on interactive measures of performance. And then there's a second part to that question, but I'll let you answer the first part first.
Yeah. So obviously for this study, we kept fatigue in mind. Obviously sleep fatigue is a very specific type of fatigue. But I think having trouble concentrating can definitely link to fatigue. So I think the results could be somewhat similar, but it'd be definitely interesting to run a study with participants who specifically just have trouble concentrating in general. And then as for adapting the cue based on interactive measures of performance, I have not looked into that yet for adapting the cue, but I think that could also be definitely an interesting outcome as well. Yeah, thank you for the question and suggestion.
And so then let's see, for the for Shunji, we have a question for you. Where is it? Are there any constraints on the shape of the surface shape of the transparent object within which the mid-air image can be shown?
Yeah, this is there is constraint because our method is applied to simpler shape like a cylinder or a cube, but it is partly difficult to apply our method to complex meshes like Stanford Bunny. So this is a future work, and I will develop a new system for these meshes.
Thank you. And let's see, we have lots of questions. So for Yamato,
Yes.
Bruce Thomas asks, what model of projector did you use?
We used the Lightcraft 4500. I can send you a link on Discord. Thank you for the question.
Okay. And then for Wen Xiao, can people opt into the, can people, you were talking about the very end of your talk about security and privacy. And the question is, can people opt in globally, or do people have to opt in globally, or can they opt in like locally per area? So, you know, if for example, you're okay with sharing what you're doing in some areas, but not in others. Like I know it's not location based, it's image based, but could you do it by image or by subject?
Yeah.
Or would it just
First,
be too complicated?
Yeah. First, the local sharing is enabled via P2P or Wi-Fi direct. So you can only the system would be only to share results with people that are physically located near to you. And we also would add an option in the future that in some places you can turn on the option to enable the P2P sharing, and some places you don't. So it's you are more privacy concern. You can keep your privacy. Yeah.
Thank you. So let's see, so we'll wrap around to some of the other questions we didn't get to. Aijia, David Walton asks, he says, great talk. I think you mentioned that you captured the real scene using an RGB depth camera. In my experience, these cameras tend to struggle with transparent and translucent objects. How did you get around that problem?
I use an RGBD camera to recognize the transparent object, and after that, I used Visuo to reconstruct the transparent object.
Thank you. And then Ling Wei asks, says, thanks for the talk. Was the input image a single shot from the camera sitting at the same field of view of the augmented reality view? If based on a single flat image, can this method be migrated to capture to a captured immersive scene, such as a 360-degree video?
Is that for me? Sorry.
Oh, it was put under, it said it was directed to Aijia, but it does sound like it was for you, Allison.
Oh, I don't know. Aijia, is that for you? I'm not sure.
This problem is for video.
Yeah, I guess that's for me. I'm not exactly sure where. Sorry. Yeah, we're just a little confused because it didn't really address who this question's for. So I'm sorry. I'm just a little confused.
Yeah, what's interesting is Ling Wei has a different question for you, Allison, actually. So I can read you the one that they wrote for you. And it says, in the study, did you require users to maintain gaze as their pointer only? What about a situation naturally when a user points at an object and says, look here, but was at the same time not actually looking at that object?
It's a really good question, because during the study, we just told all the participants to be as natural as they want. So they don't necessarily have to use gaze as a pointer. They can use their hand to physically point for the local users. So it's a really good question. But we have another study that is basically detecting why we need our personal self-gaze indicator versus we know where we're looking at, but why do we need an indicator? That study actually shows the reason why we use gaze as a pointer, mainly two reasons, two findings. The first finding is that when people don't really have the cursor, they aren't necessarily sure where they're looking at, only because our eye gaze is a cone. So the further away from it, the bigger the target can be. So sometimes people can also be confused. The second reason is also because it's designed bidirectional. So not only you know where you're looking for, the other person also knows where you're looking for. So this way it gives you a better gaze alignment to make sure your message has been successfully delivered to the other person with the gaze cursor of yourself and the other person. So using gaze cursor, not mainly just for pointing, but also for assurance of messaging being delivered and a symmetrical design for the interface design for the whole system to be more consistent.
Thank you. So we've got a couple more minutes. So let's see. For Ben. Okay, sorry, Steve, the second part of Steve's question. Did you look at ways of modifying a specific style, for example, by making arrows or highlights bigger or brighter to make it work better for a user instead of changing the style entirely?
Yeah, thank you. I really want to answer this question as well, because I think it's definitely an interesting direction. So we have had a look at modifying the size or specific style just yet. But I have seen Professor Feiner's and his lab's work regarding multi-level viewing, and they do some very similar stuff to that. And I think it's very interesting. Definitely a good direction for the field of view research.
And let's see, where are the other questions? I think that's all we have for questions. At least that's all the questions that I can see. So I will let you all go then 1 minute early. Thank you so much, everybody, for staying on time. Really nice session, super interesting talks.
Thank you so much.
Nice
to meet everyone here. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys.
Okay, bye-bye.